I'm just gonna do Ruben's bio.
Oh my God.
So
1 minute, right? 1 minute intro.
So,
Yeah.
so when we start, like when we turn it on, we're gonna give like how many minutes? 10? 5? Like we're not gonna be like, hey, 5 o'clock, welcome, or do we just be like, hey, you guys?
We're all live on YouTube right now.
Yes.
Oh, we are right now.
I just started it.
Hey, you guys.
Oh, shoot.
Hi.
Great to see you on YouTube.
Oh, wait, are you talking or no?
Am I?
Oh, no, okay.
This
Sorry.
is like the cute blooper reel part where we say things on a hot mic.
Yeah,
You don't know.
this is.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 5:01. I'm going to let everyone in and then wait a few minutes, right?
Okay.
Or maybe in one more minute.
But I think Ray's question was if you're going to wait like 3 minutes to start like the introduction, or how many minutes you're gonna.
What do you guys think? 2?
Well, in the walkthrough was like 3 minutes, no? I thought.
Yeah, but is that a long time to sit looking at each other?
A long time on Zoom.
Yeah.
Really?
I think I'll just say that we're going to give it another minute to let people arrive.
Oh, I'm always in Mexican time, so I'm always need like at least 3 minutes to get somewhere.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm
You
like,
could say
oh,
2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
yeah.
One,
But
I usually 50.
there's already like 60 people waiting.
Meg Linton has all the events start at like 1:05 or 5:05 because she thinks if we give them a weird time, they're on time.
Okay, I'm going to admit all.
Yes.
okay.
Yes. That works.
I'm mute myself. Bye, guys. See you on the other side. In Mexican time, so I'm always need like a.
Stimulate the cell.
Oh my God, it's a lot of people.
It's going to cause the end plate to.
Hi, everyone. As you enter, please mute yourself if you can. I couldn't set it up to automatically mute.
That's going to be.
For some reason.
That's gonna hyperpolarize.
Positive. That's positive current. Yeah.
No.
Or Deborah, you can also go through with people.
Wait, what?
And is the slide above that a similar idea?
Hi, everyone.
What was the slide above it?
Please mute yourself.
You want me to send you a picture?
Sure.
I'm going to talk about something very interesting, but. And welcome, everyone. Okay, we're just going to wait a few more minutes because there's still people joining. Thank you for coming. And thank you for muting yourself, whoever did. That's amazing. Okay. Okay, one more minute and then we'll start. And then going forward, I'm going to ask Bronwyn, if you see people in the waiting room, will you let them in? That would be great. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start. Anyway, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. First off, I need to let you know that we are going to be recording this talk. So you should turn off your video if you don't be in the recording. Also, if you can all mute yourself if you aren't already, that would be amazing. Thank you. Hello, I'm Kaisa Johnson from Artists for Democracy, and I'd like to welcome you to our inaugural Artists for Democracy Artist Talk series featuring Ruben Ochoa. We believe that change is a multi-tiered process. We need people in the streets making their voices heard and holding people accountable. We need to organize to make sure that voting is accessible to all people. Then we need to vote to make sure that those in power represent the people's best interests. We need to get people into power at every level of government, locally on up, who can codify progress into real, meaningful legislation. Protest, organize, vote. We are so excited to bring you 7 phenomenal artists over the next 7 weeks who will talk about their work and their civic engagement. You will see that sometimes these things overlap, and sometimes these things work distinctively from each other. Artists are natural activators for change. They can shape dialogue through their work. They are trained to ask questions, solve problems, manifest new things, and challenge the status quo, all of which are essential for creating social and systematic change. Right now, one of the most important things we can do as a community is mobilize ourselves and those around us to take civic action in one very simple and impactful way, to vote. Elections are sometimes won by very small margins. A few votes per district can be the deciding factor. Your vote really does have power. With that in mind, I'm going to ask you all to take the first simple step at some point during this talk in that practical civic action. Go to vote.org, the link is in the chat, and either register to vote or make sure you're registered, which I do every few days, just in case. It's super quick and easy. Once you do, please write done in the chat. While you do that, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of how the event will go. First, Ray Rockland is going to give us a brief overview of Artists for Democracy and things we've done in the past, some of which we will elaborate on in the coming weeks. Then Sarana Mehra will tell you what we've been doing on social media and how you can participate. And then to the best part, when Deborah Osheim will introduce you to Ruben and he will talk about his work. If you have questions for Ruben, please enter them in the chat and he will answer them at the end of his talk when he's in conversation with Deborah. Then to close out, Deborah will give you a few parting voting tips. Each week, we will end with concrete information or resources to make the process of voting easier for you. Thank you, and take it away, Roy.
Hey, you guys, thanks so much for joining us on our first Artists for Democracy talk. What a pleasure it is to be here with you. So I'm going to share my screen, of course, and give you a quick overview of what we've been up to over the last couple years. Artists for Democracy was born out of the art community's urgent need to engage politically after the 2016 election. Initially, we helped organize postcard writing parties and talks on the subjects of art, politics, immigration rights, and reform. We used our artistry to highlight the plight of families being affected by immigration policies and have created materials to be used to help free those families from ICE detention. Our media director, Sarana Mehra, has given talks on the state of the healthcare industry and the push for a comprehensive universal healthcare plan. In the summer of 2018, Artists for Democracy focused our efforts on the midterm elections, looking to collaborate with art schools in swing districts to engage art students politically. As artists, we organized voter registration drives and canvassing efforts at CalArts and held fundraisers for congressional candidates running in key swing states and districts. We organized 2 busloads of artists to be driven down to Irvine to canvass for candidates running in that district, helping them win their congressional seats as part of the Blue Wave of 2018. As we head into the November election, we have organized a series of artist talks to help raise voter awareness and participation, particularly among art students in swing states. And with that, I would like to pass it along to Sarana Mehra, who's going to talk to you guys more about what we have been doing online in this recent pandemic. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. So like many organizations during these crazy times, Artists for Democracy had to move our activism online and virtual. During the last few months, we built our social media presence and outreach to become a hub where artists and educators could find relevant information on how and where to protest, organize, and vote and become better informed citizens. Our website is now a database for artists, educators, and institutions with products and kits created by artists such as downloadable zines like the How to Vote series by Bronwyn Malden and Erin McDermott's Media Literacy cartoon. We recently launched A4D TV, where you'll be able to find this talk and the rest of the talks, the Artists for Democracy talks. And A4D TV also showcases artist talks by A4D members, where they talk about their art practice and how and why they got into political activism. The A4D Instagram also is a platform that acts as an information database on issues such as healthcare, the climate crisis, artist emergency resources, our get out the vote efforts, inclusivity, and racial justice. During the Black Lives Matter protest, we prioritized our Instagram posts in effort to keep people informed of local and national movements and how they could get out and help organize and work to go protest. Much of what A4D does, in the words of our fellow artist activist Lisa Ann Arbuck, is in the spirit of radical practicality. In the light of that, our POV series we just launched, these are short Instagram videos shot on phones, very casual, and where artists tell us why they protest, organize, and vote. If you'd like to give us your POV or your why you protest, organize, and vote, please send us your short film. It can be like 20 to 50 seconds max to info@artistsfordemocracy.com or go to our Instagram for more information. And now I'm going to pass you along to the main event, which is Ruben Ochoa being interviewed by Deborah Ashton. Thank you. Yeah, good. Okay.
Hi, I'm Deborah Ashheim, and I'm going to introduce Ruben Ochoa. I'm going to try to do this off the top of my head, but I met Ruben when he was a MFA student at the University of California, Irvine. He went to Otis College for his undergraduate, and almost immediately after graduating, he had a string of successes. And so Ruben is the recipient of a Guggenheim Foundation Fellowship. He's also received a grant from the Creative Capital Foundation. He's exhibited in the Whitney Biennial. He was the only American artist in the first annual International Pilchuck Award of Emerging Young Talent. He's been in an exhibition of the Venice Biennale. He's exhibited multiple times with Suzanne Bellmetter Gallery, where he's represented, and he's done major public art commissions in Miami and for the General Services Administration. He also has exhibited at the Nasher Sculpture Center in Dallas, at Site Santa Fe in New Mexico, at Locust Projects in Miami. And he's a associate professor of studio art practice at the University of Southern California. Was that a minute? So anyways, it's my pleasure to present Ruben Ochoa.
Wow, thank you, Deborah. That was, I don't know how I could follow up on that. No, I want to thank everyone for attending. Thank you guys for coming during this evening or even at night, depending what side of the coast you're on or what time zone. I want to thank Artists for Democracy for inviting me, and Deborah, a good friend I've known for years, for inviting me to participate in this artist talk. I'm going to go run through a range of artworks that I've put together. Some of you guys have seen before, some of them are new works. So I guess hold all questions to the end. Let me see, give me a second, let me share my screen. Takes a second. So, I grew up in Southern California. I'm an LA-based artist. Also, associate professor, practice at University of Southern California. Got to give a shout out to, fight on. But oops, sorry. As a lot of like many of you, I started off drawing as a child, and I was inspired a lot by. Oops. Give me one second. Inspired a lot by comic books. Of course, G.I. Joe was a really big influence. I grew up in Oceanside, which was near a military base, so everything was militarized. Everything was, if you go to the Marines, you're a real American hero, I guess. But other things that really inspired me also too were the Garbage Pail Kids. I was really drawn to the Garbage Pail Kids. As one of the things I guess my first exposure to art, aside from like sculptural objects in my home, my mom's porcelain figures and the toilet, which I made a series about. I'm not gonna get into, but the Garbage Pail Kids were work that I would, I got into, found out about modern art. I found out about art galleries. I always loved sprayed Wade when he gets tagged. But as I was putting together some of the images, as an artist, I was drawing, constantly drawing, and some of these things were, these are a series of works I did in 2006 of like this impending doom. And I pulled them out. I haven't seen them in like, probably like, I guess 15 years. But thinking about this time just, you know, the pandemic, the administration, the uprising, I felt like these works really resonated with everything that's been going on now. These works of paper just like collapsing on this like systemic racism, collapsing on people, which, you know, I tap into a lot to my personal subjectivity, you know, starting off, you know, having, well, there's 4 brothers, there's 4 of us, but the other one wasn't born when we took this picture. When you think of this administration calling people like bad hombres, you're just like, what are you talking about? You know, I grew up with my brothers. I grew up in the community, mostly pretty diverse, but a lot of Mexican Americans in the community. We all saw ourselves like good hombres, you know, just sporting good hombre, you know, really sporting the serape. But, you know, my work still, again, influenced a lot by the G.I. Joe, my Mexican culture, and also growing up to California, you see the caution sign, people running across the freeway. So a lot of those things would always impact me, especially coming to art school when I would drive from Oceanside to Los Angeles. Growing up here near the border, near the frontera, you'd always get questioned. You have to, as a person of color, you always got to be wary about the police as you're growing up as a teenager. You're getting sweated, but also in Oceanside and Southern California, you got to get sweated by the Border Patrol. So you got to watch out for the Border Patrol because they're always going to stop you and ask you whether you're a resident or not. So, you know, I having these issues of constantly driving on the freeway back and forth, going to Tijuana, going to LA, having to come across this checkpoint. I came up with this piece. It was called Chalk in the Trunk. The idea was to have this big Jack in the Box pop out of the trunk because every time I get stopped by the San Clemente Border Patrol, the U.S. Border Patrol marshals in San Onofre, they'd always ask to check my trunk. And so I had this idea of like, what if this Jack in the Box just popped out, you know? And, you know, because every time you're going to cross a checkpoint, you know, I made this zine. You always got like make this gringo face, you know, like everything's cool, we're good, but then you get sweated. And I think one time a friend and I were coming, we're both residents in Oceanside going to art school, going to Otis, and they didn't believe we were art students. We had to like stop, open the trunk, pull out our portfolio, show them our work, and that's the only thing that convinced them before they detained us, you know, aside from detaining us and putting us in secondary inspection. So I made the zine, but then 9/11 happened, and this was around 2000 when I was trying to come up with this project, and already when 9/11 happened, I was worried that, man, if I do this, they're just gonna mow me down, you know, they're gonna think it's a terrorist act. So, you know, I ended up just creating it as a zine. Maybe one day I'll create the work and have it tour around all the southern borders, checkpoints. You know, here's another image of it. So Chalk in the Trunk, playing off Chalk Moon and the vehicles. Sorry, let me slow down, huh? Right? Deborah, you can say, "Hello, you're speaking too fast."
Right. You're great.
So again, you know, growing up, a lot of things that's influenced me was, again, my personal subjectivity. My parents, my mom right here, if you can see my mouse, she pioneered a whole tortilla delivery route in North County of San Diego, from Oceanside, San Marcos, Vista, Pomona, San Pascual, Ramona, Carlsbad, all around Northern California, tortilla delivery route. And this is my dad right here selling tortillas. So as a kid from 5 to like, till I got went out to college, we had to sell tortillas every Saturday from 6 a.m. to 9 at night. You know, we just thought it was part of the family business. We didn't know it was like issues of child labor. No, I'm kidding. But but we would help our family in the family business, and all week would be doing tortilla, anything to help the family business. We could go out and play late as long as we did our chores, and the chores was dealing with family business. So when I went to school, you know, eventually pursued college and went and got an art degree. Trying to figure out what I was going to do, I decided to fuse both that practice as an artist and my experience of selling tortillas. So I created oh, here's actually, this is a good shot. This is my mom right here, my uncle. These are all chicharrones, like pigskin. So this is like mid 80s. I'm trying to tell by her hair and her pumps. But sorry, mom, if you're watching. No, I'm kidding. I should have done a Zoom. But, so I created Classy, a mobile artist space. You know, when I went to school, I didn't know what I was going to pursue. I went in thinking I was going to do illustration. I found out my influences were artists I ended up getting a BFA in painting and ended up doing a lot of sculpture work. The work just started leaving the canvas. And as you see, I kind of go back to painting. So I never was interested in showing in galleries. I always was interested in bringing the work to the streets. And so Classy was kind of like a perfect fusion of that. It was, I had a gallery in the inside, I had an office in the front, and I had a storage space in the back. So here's the office. This is before comedians invite curators in cars, and we drive around the block, invite other artists, and we talk about the next upcoming show, like how to create a show that would, where we could park it, where we could drive it, where we could intervene into space, into the public space. We park at Bergamot, we park at Mocha. A lot of artists always want to park next to the gallery. I'm like, let's take it out. Let's go to the gas station. Let's go to the donut shop. Or even some artists like, hey, I have a favorite donut shop. Let's go there. So see, these are cell phones back then. But I had a little desk that would flop down. I had blinds in case you want to have like a private, meeting. And then I had a swivel chair that I put in. I don't think it was to code, but it did have a seatbelt, so that was good. This was a storage space. Like every gallery space, you gotta have a storage space. And I was able to soup it up with, I got a UCIRA grant from the University of California, and I was able to use that funds to add solar power. So those are all the batteries to solar power. And then when the batteries would die out, I would run this 100-foot extension cord, powered on both, it was live on both ends, and I'd just go pirate electricity throughout the city. I'd find, you could find garages, you could find parking structures, you could find all the Christmas lights, all the trees with Christmas lights, they'd have open power. So, to really activate the space and create video projections. For those that are interested in doing that now, you find these spots there around. Of course, maximum occupancy was about 3. Not a lot of people could fit in there. I got my cousins involved. They helped advertise for the shows. So here's our show here. This is in Wilmington. And so here's the gallery. This is the first show in there. It was a series of my own works, series of paintings. But you can see, there it is. There's people crawling in there. And of course, you see why maximum occupancy was 3. Of course, we get more people in there, but then it get a little crowded. My brother, he doubled as a vanguard. His name is Arturo, so he went as, like the avant-garde. He's a vanguard. He had a mechanic smock with his name tag on it, and it said classy. He looks pretty menacing, but he's pretty chill. This is Sandra de la Rosa's work, de la Rosa, sorry, curated by Rita Gonzalez. This is Ruben Ortiz, artist. He curated a show of Kevin Wingate, series of paintings. And these are a series of these customized vans he would do. And Ortiz's idea was like, if these works don't function here, they'll never function anywhere else because it's inside a van. This is Jesse Weber. A lot of artists were peers. A lot of artists were artists of color, marginalized artists. Jesse, which we call Tennessee, wanted to create these series of like Barnett Newman means drunk truck driver freeway signs. And we try to get this. And then one day we drive around LA. We couldn't get stuck in traffic. We had a captive audience and we couldn't get it. This is Adrian de la Peña's work. This is at his favorite donut shop, Best Donuts. Aya Seiko and Chris Ferreria. This is in Little Tokyo. We were driving all around as many places as we can, and the spots would be weekend stuff. It was also my vehicle I was using for work. So every time someone to have a show, I was like, I actually got to go to work. So I'd have to navigate that as well. The van was on its last leg. It constantly breaking down. And it would, I'd have to kind of be a mechanic, which I'm really bad at being a mechanic. I'd have to be a curator, preparator, be the chauffeur, and install the works and move the works. This is in Frogtown. This is Matt Driggs and Joe Heflin. They created a half pipe. And if you guys all know Max Prensley from Rape Projects, he used to be an 80s skater, and that's him skating on top. It's actually him blurred. It wasn't a true half pipe. He was freaking out the whole time. But this is at the Laguna Laguna Art Museum, curated by Tyler Stallings. We pulled a van in there. Albert Lopez, pulling the van. Hale, trying to get the community to come help him. Of course, they didn't. They just watched him try to pull this like muscle man, strongest, that's incredible, strong man, across the 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 road, the intersection, as the van broke down. And of course, that's me and my brother trying to look hard with our classy Laka. So anyway, that was classy. I was always interested in creating work that was outside of the space, or how to like create my own space. Like, you know, a lot of galleries and spaces weren't necessarily, at least growing up, weren't always friendly to artists of color. So I was like, how do I create work, not necessarily create my own space and invite my own peers, and or how do I get the museum crowd outside and into the streets? Again, the caution sign here. This is when they came down, I want to say in 2011. It's usually a family of immigrants. It's supposed to depict the family immigrants when they're running from the Border Patrol into the freeway. So when I had my first show at the museum of my first, not my first shows, but I had a show at the Oceanside Museum of Art where I grew up. One of the pieces was dealing with all my experiences growing up in Oceanside. And so this was a piece, I called it, it was called, I was called Boyo for, you know, for the price of the music, I'm sorry, I was called Boyo for another reason. I also Boyo for the price of the museum admission. So here you got the, again, the people running, the sign depicted in the caution sign. You know, as a, growing up here, a lot of one of the derogatory terms is calling Mexicans pollos. Anyways, I get so emotional. Anyways, so you're called a pollo, and so it's more like a, you know, headless chicken, like a chicken running around, and the Border Patrol's trying to chase you. And so my take on this was like, all right, I was, you know, for the price of museum admission, you can see the show. Also, you know, being called a pollo, I was called pollo for another reason. Sorry, I'm going back and forth. I was called pollo for another reason because for about 7 years of my life, I was also the chicken mascot for my mom's restaurant. And so there's me, you know, when you start doing this at 10 years old, you're like, what is this? How does this impact you? Anyways, that's a different story for my therapist. No, I'm joking. So, you know, at 10, I'm always from then 10 to until I again left the college, I had to be this chicken mascot for every event. And so that's why my friends would also call me Pollo, because my mom, it was like the evolution of vendors. She started off on foot, selling tortillas to the van, into the back of a trunk to the van, to then get in a restaurant. And then we all helped. So for the price of museum admission, you got to get my favorite meal, which is 2 pieces of chicken, rice and beans. And we called it the Museo Special for that duration of the exhibit. So I was really interested in how do we get the restaurant crowd into the exhibit to go see my show, and how do we get the museum crowd to go to my mom's restaurant. And so for the $5 price of the museum admission, you get the free Garito Special, and if you bought the Garito Special, you get to go see my show for free. Needless to say, more people from the museum went to go get food than people from the restaurant culture to go go to the museum. At some point, my mom was just like giving out tickets, like, just go see my mijo show, check it out. But when you went to the restaurant, you got to see the series of window paintings of me as this chicken warrior, as you know, being playing off like the Aztecs and the Eagle Warrior. Instead of Chichen Itza, it was Chicken Itza, so I'd paint pyramids on there. I had my experience of being this chicken warrior and pretty much passing the feather on to my brother and cousin. Taking this play off these Aztec calendar poses of the chicken and like the damsel and Pocotepec and Ixcuachtli, the mountains in Mexico, where it has La Mujer Dormida, the woman sleeping. But because I was doing this with the chicken and a skin color, it came out really bizarre. So I think when people got there, they didn't know what to make. And I think the restaurant goers are like, I don't think I'm gonna go see the show if the window paintings are kind of odd like this. So some parts of it was successful, some parts, it failed. But my mom let me paint anything on the windows, which is pretty funny. So thinking of creating culture and creating meaning, for me, has always been a part of my work. So one thing I did, I know there's a lot of students watching, so I figured I'd show them some works from undergrad. When I was a senior, I created, I wanted to create my own culture. Instead of being a gringo, I created a gringo. So I was a gringo, not gringo. And I pretty much for 6 weeks of my life, I painted myself green, and I went out every day of my life being green. My clothes, I don't know why I took off my shirt, but maybe it's because the Hulk was big at the time. Maybe I finally looked healthy at the time. I don't know. But I would go around the city. Pretty much when I left my apartment, I was green. My hair, my clothes, my skin. Usually that's like dark dyed green. I'd come across other green things. I had a green card. I carried a green card, kind of, and introduced to people. I'd come across people staring at me, kind of like pinche gringo, but playing off all these like tropes. But the green card was, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a business card that said, yes, I'm green. Yes, I'm a gringo, not a gringo. Therefore, I apologize for any discrimination my skin color has caused you. Just as I do not discriminate against you, please do not discriminate against my race, culture, and skin color. Of course, I'm totally like riffing off, other artists that done the card. It primarily took place at Otis, so I knew how to begin the piece, and throughout the process, people actually started getting upset when I was being green for so many weeks. They're just like, "Why is he being a gringo? Why doesn't he end?" And they started like defacing. I created a series of gringo segregation laws. Gringos must use stairs. Everything was on the 7th floor, so I had to go walk up 7 floors. I couldn't speak Greenish. I created this whole culture of the gringos before my time, gringos and gringas, and eventually started culminating to this movement and support from classmates, and also this like altercations. People were literally defacing it and trying to come up with derogatory terms, calling me a green booger, a green snot, a greenback, and I was like, well, it kind of means money, sure. So in the end, people started supporting and saying, I want to be a gringo for the day. And so it culminated to this march for Greenpeace in a sense. I was tapping into all these things. And during that march for Greenpeace, we walked around the campus and we rallied for Greenpeace. And what people didn't know is I also recruited a group of rednecks. And so a group of rednecks came out and they started like battling with these gringos. And some people would paint themselves half green, saying, yeah, I'm part Italian, I'm part gringo. And so then as this battle happened, it pretty much became a performance that I couldn't control. People actually started choking and kind of squabbling a bit. And I was like, whoa, we got to cut this out. I had my green Cal Worthington suit. I gave a speech on what it meant to be green. And unfortunately, it ended. I subverted it. And there was a fellow gringo who then assassinated me like green on green crime. And that's how the piece ended. And then I got to be myself again after 6 weeks of being green. Anyway, so looking at the built environment, I started looking at, I was looking at identity politics, but looking at the built environment, I was also fascinated how the built environment also impacts culture, class, and identity. So I would look at how, especially, I mean, if we think about what's going on now, a lot of the taking out a lot of the monuments, these racist monuments. One of the largest monuments, I guess you could say, could be attributed to racism is the LA freeway. That thing was built and it just displaced hundreds and hundreds and thousands of residents. It's cut through communities like non-affluent communities. East LA, Boyle Heights is just an island of where all the working class lives, dissected by 5 freeways, the 5, the 10, the 710, and then the 105 goes by near there. And then you think of the last freeway built was the 105 and how that ripped through South LA, South Central LA, and displaced a lot of those residents. So I started looking at that and how that affected the space. So I figured, I was like, well, why can't I just remove the wall, remove the freeway? And I was already adding these freeway walls into neighborhoods. So then I wanted to remove a section from the freeway. I knew Caltrans would never allow me to do it, but I did get a grant through Creative Capital. So my idea was to wallpaper the freeway. Like create this conceptual earthwork where I'm removing part of the wall. And this is us installing it. There's my younger brother. And so then the idea was to have this wall look almost kind of like in the Looney Tunes, like cartoons way, where you just throw up a section, throw up a mural or photo mural, and then it looks like the wall was removed. And the piece, it existed it was always meant to be temporary for 3 months. And part of the plan was for me to have a graffiti abatement plan because the city was concerned that it would get tagged on immediately. And luckily it didn't get bombed on not immediately. It probably took every 21 days, and I had to have a plan to address it. And when I did address the graffiti, they were like, "Oh, you're doing really well. You don't have to rush." And I had like 10 days. You don't have to do it so fast. So the last time when it got tagged, they said, you have a week to do it, and within that week, it just got obliterated, which is pretty awesome for me. I mean, this is the conversation. This is the conversation between the community and the work. You get billboards put in neighborhoods that people don't want to see these advertisements for alcohol or whatever, and so that's why they get tagged on. People, they don't function in these neighborhoods. So the fact that this got tagged like every 21 day was exciting. That I said, all right, that was people's threshold. They like to see it for 20 days. The 21st day, I don't know what the city of LA did try to. Well, Caltrans and the LAPD did try to force me to make this a sting operation to catch taggers, and I refused. And so then they were like, all right, you're going to have 48 hours to respond to any graffiti. But I had a team out there. We went back and painted the landscape every time it happened. These are just a series of works I go through of intervention in gallery spaces. Removing the section of the wall, I thought it'd be great to bring in a section of the wall into the gallery space. This is extracted, once extracted, a version in New York, and it's about a 2-ton sculpture. And so as you walk in the art gallery, the crowds are really smart. They know if they bang on, they look at the small doorway and they're like, this can't be a real sculpture. So when they walk through, they bang on through the sculpture, and they could hear how hollow it was. And so like, oh, this is a construct. All barriers, all borders are all constructs. So they got to see that. But when you walk to the other side, you got to see that the dirt itself was also a construct. That was about like an 1/8 inch thick. And I think that's what I think really activated the piece, really made it about form and formlessness, this leaning sculpture. And I think that's what really made people's jaw drop, to be like, oh, wow, the dirt's fake too, So I really started looking at the underpinnings and the underpinnings of built environment, the rebar that's laid on the floor, on concrete, looking at the invisible labor that my dad worked construction, my cousins worked construction, all this invisible labor that's being put forth to create our environment, our built environment, but also they had to be invisible. So I got the chance to fill one of my first solo show at Suzanne's space was if I had a rebar for every time someone tried to mold me. It was my first show at a gallery, having representation after years of not working in the gallery, or working gallery representation. I was worried I was going to say, get told make 10 of these, 10 different colors. But she was really supportive. She let me fill the room with concrete, but we got to do the whole thing of rebar. And then for a survey show I had at Art and Practice, and which I call it my 10-year challenge, and you can see how Deborah liked it. No, I'm kidding. This is the construct too, but it wasn't a 10-year challenge. 10 years later, I got to recreate this. If I had a rebar for every time someone tried to mold me, I created it at Art and Practice, and this time it was 30 feet long, 9 feet high. So you got Suzanne's space on the left, and then Art and Practice to the right. Again, looking at how things are demarcated and delineated, I started looking at these galvanized fence posts and how fences delineate space, and I started uprooting them and really pulling out what I consider like the root of like demarcation, like the post footing. Like you get these posts and these chain links. A lot of it was stemming from the '92 riots, when you'd see all these this failure in civic engineering. When the riots happened, they didn't go back and build a lot of these communities up. They were just left with chain link fences, grass, and so I started looking at those forms and pulling those things out and creating sculpture works from there. This thing spans about 31 feet. I don't know how these guys got in here. Sorry, man. That's their artwork in the back. And my next shot was supposed to be my parents. There's my pops. Again, he worked construction. A big influence was what my mom and dad did. But it's impacted me a lot, because when I started working in concrete, my dad laid concrete. And when I got to have my first museum solo show, I would talk to him. And anytime I laid concrete, I would like go and ask him, and he helped me lay concrete on my first like painting, on panel. But a lot of it was because also he influenced me, but also, again, back to GI Joe, back to the action figures. And one of the figures I was really drawn to were the Dreadnoks. These are like these from down under characters. And what I was drawn to these guys, less of the GI Joe military guys, but more of the Dreadnoks, because they actually looked like construction workers. They had denim, like the first action figures I saw that had denim, and then they had like these power tools. They kind of looked like my dad and uncle who worked construction. So, I just threw them in there, like, hey, these guys kind of look like my uncle, my dad. But when I had my first solo show at Site Santa Fe, I got to use the space as I activated the space as my medium. I went and cut out the floor and really like extrapolated the floor, and again used the museum as medium, and cut out all their floors. Most of the budget, unfortunately went back to repairing the museum, but I got to cut out a lot of the floor. And this first piece is called "Get Off Me, I'm Not On You." It's that constant pull of back and forth of working in the gallery space, the museum space. As artists of color, it's this contentious space, and now there's a lot more artists of color, showing and exhibiting. But when I was an undergrad and when I was in graduate school, there wasn't too many. We could count 5. Like, all right, there's another artist that made it. All right, cool. So these works were about really like taking apart the space, almost an institutional critique, but also having fun with it, playing with it, cutting it out as if the floor just walked out and you just stretched it out, pulled it out. See all the rebar. Dirt. Sorry, I'm just going through some of these. Again, this is for Locust Projects. I got to pull out the floor as well. And what I found fascinating about this one was their barrier they have in the bottom, underneath. And they had this coral, they have the coral earth, and they have this water barrier. Because I try to go as deep as I can, but you couldn't in Florida because you could hit water and flood the place and inundate with water. So this really drew me to painting. So from there, thinking about, again, class and socioeconomics, social class and material, I decided I'm going to put concrete slabs, cut out floors, find concrete throughout the city, and cut them out and install them in the gallery, and make them as paintings. And then I actually went, oh, yikes, what's up, man? And then I actually started painting. I started taking material that I found that was familiar with me, was rust. Like I started rusting canvases and panels. This one is reminds me of my dad's truck, which his construction truck was all rusted. Oops, I can't even see the title of that one because the zoom. Dang, looks like my uncle's van. And this is actually rust pigment. So I'll put metal filaments into acrylic and rust the canvas or the wooden panel. It's not even steel. Oops, sorry. Looks just like my neighbor's car. Which kind of thinking of the space, thinking of gallery spaces and materials. Like essentially, I'm just trying to like sell dirt, rust, and concrete to collectors. So it takes a really, I think, important collector to try to acquire my work. They got to really be into the work. They got to be down with it. This is a piece I did this year. It's called hashtag. If I had a hashtag for every time someone tried to hold me down, it was for Suzanne Velmuter's 20th anniversary. It was a celebration of like 20 years. She's had the space, and she's really worked with a lot of artists of color, range of artists, a lot of projects. But for me, I decided to use my platform and to make it a piece about now, make it about what's going on now. And it was excuse me, got stalled. It was a piece about now, with all the uprising happening, with the pandemic, with this administration for years. I was just like, well, what can I do now? How can I make work? How can I address this moment? And what can it signify? And for me, it was creating this hashtag that could lead into like, it could, initially it could be hashtag fuck the police, but also could be hashtag, fuck the power, hashtag, it could be feel the power, fight the prisons. It could be free the prisoners. Kids are being caged by this administration. It could be, fuck the politicians for failing the people. Let's forge a path for for the people. So I really like the open-endedness of this. And I have a quick video of it. Let's see if it works. Turn up the volume. Me installing it. That's the last piece. Theme. And don't forget to vote. Thank you all. Tried to run through all these images in this time frame, so hopefully it came across really well and you get to get a glimpse of my practice in the last.
Yeah, that was awesome, Ruben. Thank you so much. And I can't believe you did it like that was almost perfectly timed for the for our timings that we had. But one thing I wanted to really thank you for is I really appreciate you showing a lot of the earlier work. I know that you don't, I don't know if you always showed that, but I think that's really, it's really great. I know when you did that for my students at UCLA, it really helped them see how all these ideas that aren't necessarily as obvious in the work are informing it, and how the ideas that inform your practice like really gestate over a really long time. I know you and I have talked a lot about how sometimes people read your work as formal, as being about interventions into architecture. So I really appreciate how you were able to connect that up to your activist works and other ideas that are present in the work, but maybe need a little shout out to see them. So thank you so much. So it was really great.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you a question from the audience, and we'll answer a few of those, and then I'm gonna intersperse that with asking you about voting. Maybe that's the best way to do it, to talk, so we're not just all voting all the time. So one of the questions is, which of these works did you enjoy the process of creating the most?
Oh man, which one did I enjoy the most? I guess my kids. What works? All the works they're very laborious. Even when I do drawings, I didn't even show the cement drawings. I can't make something simple. It just becomes this laborious practice. I mean, the one thing my parents did teach me, they did teach me how to work, and I think it's a great thing, and it's also like a flaw. Like my partner's like, when are we going to go on vacation?
Oops, I don't know what that was.
My beeper. No, I'm kidding. I think I don't know. I don't think I really have an answer. I mean, if you ask my family, they have their favorites. I don't know. I think just having it accomplished and getting close to what you envisioned is what I think what I enjoy. Sometimes it's off, and sometimes it could go off and become some other thing, which is nice too. These happy accidents. Hope that answered that.
Yeah, no, that's great. So another question from the chat is, how do you connect the cement and rebar works to explicitly activist work, such as the Gringo Project?
I wouldn't say, for me, what I was trying to show in the image was this thread of what I was doing. The Gringo piece was in '97. The cement works were like in 10 years later, 2007. It just constantly me looking at my subjectivity as looking as my early works in the '90s, even before that, was really about heavily about identity politics, about being Mexican American, and addressing those issues. But as I continue to look at how I'm identified, or how I identify, or how my subjectivity is created, I looked at the built environment, and I looked at those around me, like that informed me, like my dad doing construction, and all these materials that have these inherent history. Concrete, rebar. Here in at least Southern California, a lot of the laborers that are doing that are Mexican American. They're legal or illegal, and a lot of them are family members. and I think that's how I tie that in, is looking at these materials with inherent histories, from wooden pallets. My uncle's working in wooden pallets to my cousin's tying rebar, um, cutting up a space, cutting out a gallery space, trying to make works that are uncompromising and trying to hold on to the integrity of the work. What works, it kind of goes in, what's satisfying is like, how do I pull this off as an artist? Like, how do you convince a museum to like, hey, I'm gonna cut up your floor, but also as an artist of color, like getting this opportunity, like, I grew up selling, selling tortillas. Like now I'm like, you know, bringing in large machines into museum space, forklifts, and we're like gouging out the floor. I'm gouging out the gallery space with FTP, and the gallery's like, okay, how are we gonna sell this? I'm like, I don't know, but this is what I want to do. This is my voice. This is a statement I want to make, and so I think in that sense, all art is a political act. So the fact that I can actually represent and do this, I guess in that sense, I see it.
So I love the way that you use your platform as an artist to speak out about and to represent your community and to address issues. I also know you're a really great teacher. I've even seen you in the classroom with your students. Do you talk to your students about voting? Do you use that platform to energize them to vote?
Usually in the election times we have, and then this time I sent it out to my students. I think I saw some of my students sign up. So I do try to encourage students to vote. We did so 4 years ago, did so when there's a local election, really try to push that. Yes.
Cool. And do you know who you're going to be voting for in the how are you going to vote? Are you going to vote by mail? Are you going to vote early?
I'm voting by mail because like everyone else, a lot of people, I'm sheltering in place. And we saw that our voting box is like across the street from us, which is awesome. They put one by the nearby library. So it's going to be really great. So everyone look out for those things as well. And, I'm going to be voting, of course, Democrat for Biden and Kamala.
I guess I should have let you know you didn't have to answer that. But
oh yeah, I mean, I don't mind saying it. I'm going to vote for. I'm definitely going to vote for the other party.
Yeah.
but it's also, I think I'm going to vote, but I'm also going to demand, from the Democrats, demand more because. As an artist of color, as a Latino, as Latinx, they should be doing a lot more. They want our vote, so they should. We should hold them to it. Like if they have like the Democratic convention, they only have they're having Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez speak for 1 minute, and it's like this is like one of the leading Latina politicians, in the Senate, and they only have her speak for 1 minute. And like, I'm going to demand more from my party.
So here's a question from the chat. Somebody wanted to know, what does your ideation process look like? Any advice for artists on how to come up with impactful ideas? I think there's a compliment hidden in that question.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Awesome. I probably so nervous that I wouldn't even caught it unless she told me. What is my ideation? I mean, I'm one thing, I created a lot of mind maps. I didn't show any sketches, show any of those. I do a lot of sketches. I've always continued drawing, even though a lot of my sculpture work was on the forefront. Constantly drawing, writing notes, fusing it through Photoshop or I tell my students this. It's always tough, like conceiving ideas. Like I always try to start off conceiving the idea. Maybe it's something I'm reading, maybe something that's impacting, maybe something that's affected me from like, looking at things from childhood, like having play involved in it, to just looking at like the experience, like, I grew up selling tortillas, so I'm going to try to figure that out. At one point I was drawing on tortillas. I'm going to try that. I'm going to put pen and ink on tortillas. Of course, bugs got to it, but it's always come up with the idea. And then for me, I sketch it out, and those things always get lost in translation sometimes, like trying to align what's in your mind to what you're drawing on paper. And then you try to make it as a sculpture. Like there's always this lost in translation thing, trying to manipulate material never always fully comes out the way you want it to. But, I always run with it. I'm still trying, And you know, of course, this day and age, the way the art world's gotten really academic, you know, you got to learn how to articulate and talk about your work. So trying to get up to align all those four things could be really difficult. But you know, I'm always trying to encourage students, you know, try to, you know, address things. Look at readings, look at writings, look at material, just look at everything. I pull from everything, from not just from fine art, but from pop culture, from everyday materials.
All right, so I'm going to ask you another question of mine. So one thing I really love about some of the early work you showed is just that there's like a inherent generosity in it. Like I loved Class C Gallery because you basically had an art project that was about giving other artists a platform and then actually trying to make like the art world better and I guess the world better by closing the gap between two different audiences that maybe didn't interact. So I sort of see you a lot as an influencer. And I know that we're all trying to think really hard about how we can be influencers. Like I assume anyone that's here at this talk is already planning to vote, but how can we use our status as influencers or our voice as artists to try to get people to vote that maybe aren't sure that it's a way to create change, or they might be activists in their community, but they don't see voting as a legitimate way to drive the change that they want? What would you say to somebody like that?
You got to vote. I mean, you got to. I mean, I don't want to tell you how to vote, but just to go vote. You know, if you don't vote, someone else is going to vote for you, and their voice is going to be represented. And if you want your voice represented, you got to vote. I think what I'm really, with everything happening now, a lot of the uprising happening, with the Black Lives Matter movement happening. I think what's really amazing, especially with the work you've done, Deborah, is like really trying to get people to vote. There's a protest, but let's go vote too. Let's really make change happen that's being demanded throughout the nation on the streets. Let's make that happen, because even in the early 90s, a lot of times when I was going out there protesting for, we had a really racist governor, Pete Wilson, back in the 90s. Had the same rhetoric like Trump now. Mexicans, they're the scapegoat for everything. And we galvanized, the Latino community galvanized, we marched, we protested, but no one funded us to go vote. So like Prop 187 was passed, don't speak, you know, no English only passed. Like a lot of those things got fought in court, but a lot of those things were passed because a lot of Latinos didn't vote. Like we were out there, we were marching, we were, you know, one park at a time, we were taking over, but we didn't go, we didn't register. So
yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, that resonates with what you were just saying. Sorry, I'm trying to text at the same time. About needing to hold the politicians accountable too. Like it goes both ways, right? Like you got to follow through and vote. And then after you vote, like after November, you have to make sure that it's not just at election time that the people in power care about what the rest of the people think. That's awesome. I have a question for you from the people again. Since so much of your work is location installation based, do you tend to find the exhibition space for it after to plan it, or is it the other way around? I guess kind of just a general question about your process for making site-specific works.
Sometimes it's a little bit of both. Or I mean, for the museums, I mean, it's usually an invitation or you're invited to the gallery. I actually go in there sometimes, like I just want that little room so I could do my little paintings and show and hang the work. And the museum's like, no, I'm inviting you to do this large 5,000 square foot project. And I'm just like, oh damn, all right, that's my whole year, which is exciting. You know, I really run with it too. But you know, I don't go in there to a space saying I'm just going to cut up your floor, or I'm just going to gouge your wall. It has to work with my ideas and concept, even where I'm at the moment. If I'm going to create a site-specific installation or site responsive, you know, if it's site specific, it only exists at that moment. If it's site responsive, you know, I could take it and show it anywhere else and engage in space that way. If it's indoor or outdoor, I don't know. I think it all just depends on where I'm at and what ideas I'm chewing on. You know, but the space does inform me a lot, especially as the work pops out of the canvas or flat work.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more from the audience, and I think this will be our last question, and then I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I think we might be handing it back over to A4D. So this is a hard one, but what would you say to art students about making work and building a career today?
Don't quit your day job. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm joking. Wait, could you repeat that one more time? Sorry.
Yeah. So the art students want to know advice, like, you know, they're just starting out, right? So like, do you have advice for them about making work and building a career today? I don't know if they mean like today during the pandemic, or if they mean like a bigger today, you know, like in this time. But I know that we like some of the things you talked about like slowly things changing about who's getting shown and stuff. So it could even, if you were resonating with that, you could take that any way you want to answer that.
Would you say, what was the last
Like
part?
you were talking about it getting more diverse, who's getting shown, or I guess they just wanted a little bit of career advice or well, it kind of relates to my, actually, I'm going to roll it in with my question. The question I was going to end on was like, you talked about, you know, times when you've been an activist and then you see the change that you work for sort of roll backwards, or we're in a time now where we're fighting battles that we might think that we had already won. And so maybe it's the same question, like, do you have any strategies or even just ways to stay hopeful and optimistic for artists struggling to get their careers launched, and also for all of us trying to make a better world? There's an easy one to leave you with.
Oh man, I'm thinking of so much. How do you how do I encourage artists? I mean, the first thing is to make the work. Just continue to work in the studio, produce the work. It all boils down to work. If you don't have the work, we can't have a conversation. We can't have a discussion. We can't even, there's nothing to show. But with that work, you know, makes more work. As you're making work, it you know, inspires you to create other works. It becomes an iteration of another form. You can continue start to investigate that. So once you have your body of work, I guess the other thing is being present. You know, being present, going out there, meeting up with other artists. Don't try to work in a bubble. Try to work with, you know, work with a creative community, work with other peers, bounce things off. I think what's really exciting is from undergrad to graduate, a lot of the cohorts I was involved with, like working with, you know, a lot of them, once you got into the art world, the art market really delineated like, all right, this is the piece of the pie. This is it. There's only a few pieces. I was like, nah, fuck that. We could create our own space. We could have our own shows. I could create the van, and we don't have to rely on a gallery or museum to call us. We're gonna do it ourselves. And to see that, like Crenshaw Dairy Mart is one of the cohorts that came out of USC. Like they all graduated. They're all working together to create a space. Didn't happen a lot from my collective when I was younger, but to see that happening now is exciting, especially in this time right now. So create a collective, work with them. You guys bounce off ideas. You guys bounce off energy, energy off each other. And you can't see a lot of shows now, but again, going to a show once we open up, a lot of it was sometimes just being present and going to an exhibit and having to run into someone, starting a conversation, and you realize, oh, they're the curator of this space. I had no idea. So then it creates a, you know, dialogue. Just keep at it. It's, I don't know, you know, it's tough. You want to have agency as an artist. You just want to create your work, and the idea is to have your own voice. And the reason we all make our work is to have our own voice. And sometimes, you know, they don't want that voice heard. Like even in my works, sometimes they want the artist. They want me to create a work, but they want to fetishize the object, and they want something that's sellable or marketable. And I'm just like, no, I want to do this piece. So just stick to your guns. Stick to your guts, and really trust your instincts. Really try to, I don't know if that helps answer that, or if I addressed
No, that was a great answer.
the questions. The
The
question.
last thing I want to ask you is, what are you hopeful for?
What am I hopeful for? I don't know. I don't know if I have anything. I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm always just optimistic overall, even though like I get run through the ringer sometimes. Sometimes, I mean, the art world is pretty brutal in itself. So because the market really affects things, and makes you think you got to rely on a lot of these spaces just to survive. But what am I hopeful for is the change happening. Like it is difficult to see a lot of the things we're fighting and protesting, or things just happening now. It's just like the police brutality just is still like constant, like, you know, from the 50s to the 60s, 70s to 90s. It's just like, wow. But to see more and more people galvanize and supporting one another, I think it's really hopeful. I don't know, seeing a lot of change and progress happening, seeing more people of color being exhibited. I guess one thing I was excited was this last fall I was part of the graduate committee to invite to look at be one of the graduate committees to invite students into USC. And I looked around, I was like, oh man, it was like we're a diverse group, there, and to be like, back then, it wasn't like that. And so that was pretty hopeful. That was pretty optimistic.
Great. So I think are we? Okay, that was awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all that.
I hope it makes sense. I mean, the only thing I just want to add is that I think we're talking about voting, and the process is if it's worth it. I was just going to add, it's democracy. Democracy, the wheels of democracy turn really slow, and you got to be patient with them, but you got to put in that time.
So I just got a reminder, I'm supposed to give a tip about voting to our audience, which we know is spread around the country. Thank you so much, Ruben. Thank you for being here with us today. That was great. It was inspiring to me, at least. I'm sure that all the other people going, I can see from all the billions of questions. But so wherever you guys live, make sure to make your plan for voting as early as possible. And it's really important to make a really solid plan. Find out if you're able to vote by mail, like Ruben said. See if there's a drop box that you can bring your ballot. If you're voting by mail, particularly for the first time, make sure that you really, really read the instructions. For example, one of the main reasons that people's ballots get disqualified sometimes is if they fail to sign them. So it's really important to make sure that you sign the back of your ballot. A lot of states have early voting. Early voting, if you're not, if you're able to get out and go do it, and they're gonna have big spaces with good social distancing, and that might be a time when there's less of a line and it's less crowded at the polls. But we have some resources on A4D site where you can look up and see if you're registered. You can find out about all of the different ways that you can vote in your state. And I'm going to give a shout out to a really fun website that I found recently, and it's called drawOutTheVote.com. And it's cartoonists in all of the 50 states that made comics, and then really easy to, really accessible and really fast information about where to vote, what kind of ID you need to bring so that you make sure you have the right kind of identification, finding out if you're registered, and other groups that you can get involved with to help get out the vote in whichever of the 50 states that you live in. Okay, so I'm gonna hand it back over. I'm gonna spotlight you now.
Hi, thank you everyone for coming. That was amazing, Ruben. Thank you so much. It was so inspiring. And I just want to remind you all to come back next Tuesday at the same time for Amir H. Falla, who is another amazing artist. We're excited to hear from and get an artist talk, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards. And again, there is a bunch of links in the chat that will give you voting resources. Yeah, and thank you so much, and we'll see you next week, we hope. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks, A4D crew, and Deborah, and Ruben, and everyone.
A4D. Right.